People often ask me what makes a good peer mediator. If you're a student in a high school or university wondering whether you should join an organization promoting peer mediation, or alternatively, if you work in an environment where you often find yourself needing to help your colleagues navigate conflict in the workplace, well, then this video is for you. I am Bob Bordone. I'm a senior fellow at Harvard Law School, where I directed and founded the law school's Negotiation and Mediation Clinical Program. I also run the Cambridge Negotiation Institute. In both these capacities, I've trained and worked with peer mediators in a large variety of contexts. And so in this video, you're going to learn 4 key attributes of a peer mediator. Plus, if you stick with me, I'm going to share with you one of my favorite stories of my own students mediating the teaching team that I was presumably supposed to be running. So what is peer mediation? First, let me tell you what mediation is. It's a process where a neutral third party helps people in a dispute work out a mutually agreeable solution to that dispute. Peer mediation basically means that the person who's the mediator is actually a peer of the party. So for example, it could be fellow students or a coworker or a fellow volunteer, or maybe a family member, because a family member is one of your peers. So peer mediation is different from a situation where maybe the boss is mediating, or maybe you've hired a professional outside mediator like me to help out. There are really 4 key attributes of great peer mediators. First, they are really great listeners. One of my mentors, and the person most responsible for popularizing mediation and U.S. legal processes beginning in the late 1970s, is the late, great Frank Sander. If you Google Frank Sander and mediation, you will come up with more than 2 million sites. Now, in addition to being the founding father of mediation in the United States, Frank was also the Associate Dean of Harvard Law School for many years. Now, in some ways, this was surprising because he was quiet, unassuming, definitely not the kind of person who you might think of was interested in grabbing power or influence. But the thing is, he was a great listener. And one of the most important roles he played in countless ways through many years of service at Harvard Law School was serving as an informal mediator when his own colleagues would be in conflict with each other.
Okay, everyone, shut up and look at me.
And frankly, in a place like Harvard Law School, where folks can sometimes have big egos and sometimes have strong views, Frank's uncanny curiosity, his listening skills, helped explain why he became the Associate Dean of the law school. Now, a second important quality in peer mediation is that peer mediators do all they can to avoid taking sides. So this may sound easy, but it's actually pretty hard if you're a peer, because if you're in the environment, you probably have your own views about what the right answer is and who's more reasonable and who's right and who's wrong. In order to be effective with your peers, they actually have to see you as an honest, even-keeled, and neutral broker. One of the great honors I've had in my life is to work with young Israeli and Palestinian leaders, teaching them skills of peer mediation. And in part of this teaching, we actually use some simulations. And I could say that the number one indicator of whether someone would be a successful mediator was whether they could sit through the simulation and not take sides, not show their sympathies for one side or the other. As soon as these Israeli and Palestinian young people did that in the mediation, they would completely lose their legitimacy with one side, and frankly, the mediation was all but over.
We are done here.
Third important quality: peer mediators facilitate creative problem solving. A big no-no of mediation is to listen to the parties and then come up with a solution that you think is a good solution. Even when you are right about this answer, coming up with it on your own can often backfire. It can make your peers resent you for imposing some kind of result on them.
It's your fault!
Instead, what you really want to do is create the space that allows the parties to do their own creative problem solving. What we know from research is that when parties feel that space, that autonomy to come up with their own solutions, first of all, they feel better about their outcomes. Secondly, they feel better about the process. And third, and most importantly, they're actually much more likely to follow through and enact their decisions. Fourth important quality of peer mediators is that they are emotionally intuitive. So being a good peer mediator means really reading the room. So it means being emotionally cognizant of the feelings and the dynamics going on. Peer mediators can often be especially well placed to do this because they might be able to notice more about what's important and what's going on below the surface than an outside mediator might.
Yes, it's true.
So let me give you an example. For many years, I led a teaching team of 12 lecturers and teaching assistants who taught the negotiation workshop at Harvard Law School. Because coordinating the schedules of 12 people was very challenging, our meeting for our weekly teaching team was at 7:30 a.m. on a Monday morning. Yeah, you heard that right. 7:30 a.m. on a Monday morning.
Oh, no! It's too early! It's too early!
So there we are in the middle of February at 7:30 a.m. In one of the most uncomfortable, unpleasant, conflictual teaching team meetings that I had ever been in. And I mean, things were just going really poorly. And then what's interesting is one of the student teaching assistants just stopped and she said,
You know, I just feel like there's a lot of strong emotion in this room right now.
and I wonder if we could just take a few minutes and just go around and people just share how they're feeling. Now, this may seem like a waste of time. This may seem like it was touchy-feely, but I would call this emotional intuition at work. Because what we learned, right, is it had been a cold and long winter. People were getting ready for midterm exams. People were feeling really stressed. The toll of the class we were teaching, the toll of the Monday morning meetings, and everything else going on was really exhausting people.
You look tired and old.
And so just giving people a chance to air their feelings without more than that was incredibly successful. In fact, at the end of that, we were able to move on to the problem solving without the contention, without the acrimony. So what might have seemed like a strange or touchy-feely move to do, in the end was a brilliant, efficient, and emotionally intuitive way for a peer, someone who really understood what was going on with her fellow students, to do and to intervene.
Oh, intervene. Go ahead and...
So taking on the role of peer mediation, whether you're a student, a fellow coworker, or a family member, can be extremely rewarding, and it's also really tiring. But peers have that unique ability to sometimes facilitate agreement. The best peer mediators display great listening capacity. They avoid taking sides. They facilitate creative problem solving, and they're emotionally intuitive. So I've now talked to you about these 4 key attributes of good peer mediators. Let me just say one word of warning. Sometimes you may be looked at as a possible peer mediator because people respect you, because people think highly of you, or think you'll bring a certain level of professionalism to a hard question. And that is flattering and great. It's also really important for you to be aware that mediating within an institution with your peers can be really time consuming and can frankly require a lot of skill. So if you don't have the time, if you don't have the training, if you don't have the background, become assertive, say thank you, and feel like you can walk away from it. I've seen too many situations where someone is brought in to take on this role and they are really skillful, but they don't have the background and training, and what they end up doing is making the situation worse. That's why, as you think about serving as a peer mediator, make sure not only you know these skills, but you have some of the background, some of the training, the bandwidth, and the willingness to do it. And if you want to learn more about the good qualities of a mediator, I have that video right here. Also, if you want to get some training to be a better peer mediator, please look me up at bobbordone.com or at the Cambridge Negotiation Institute. I'm Bob Bordone. Thanks for hanging out, and let's keep negotiating together. Here's that video. Be sure to click on it.